Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Going to cause huge damage. What can you do to assure my constituents in Lagan Valley and across Northern Ireland that you will listen to our concerns and act on them?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have put a record settlement into Northern Ireland, £19.3 billion. Obviously, that can be used to support people. The local growth fund's been built for a year, has been set aside to make sure that we can support those groups, and I'll continue to engage with them during that period.
Catherine Vokes.
Question number 10, Mr. Speaker.
Vote stay.
This budget provided Northern Ireland with an additional £370 million on top of the record settlement of £19.3 billion each year on average over the spending review period. The decisions we have taken will ease trade within the UK and ensure families across Northern Ireland benefit from help with the cost of living through policies like cutting energy bills and lifting the two-child benefit cap.
Thank you. And as the Secretary of State said, £370 million for the Northern Ireland Executive at this year's budget and £505 million for Wales on top of the settlements announced at the spending review shows that this government takes supporting the devolved nation seriously. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that cooperation between the UK government and the Northern Ireland Executive, like the other devolved nations, is crucial to pulling children out of poverty, improving public services and kick-starting growth across the UK?
I do agree with my honourable friend, and that is why the government's decision to lift the two-child benefit cap was widely welcomed in Northern Ireland. I would also point out that Northern Ireland is being funded slightly above its level of need. It gets 24% more than equivalent spending in England, and that means that the Executive has more money to make its decisions with.
Mr. Speaker, when the Executive was restored 2 years ago, there was a transformation fund put in place to allow the transformation of public services. As of yet, that money hasn't been fully allocated. Will the Secretary of State use his offices to encourage the Executive to actually implement that transformation fund to transform Northern Ireland public services?
Well, the Public Services Transformation Fund is a very important demonstration of the partnership between the UK Government and the Northern Ireland Executive. As the honourable member will be well aware, the first 6 projects were funded and they're making good progress. The Transformation Board is currently considering bids that are coming in for the next phase of funding. We are, of course, as is the Executive, keen to see that money spent to support the process of transformation, which is hugely needed in the way in which public services are delivered in Northern Ireland.
Sarah Pulchin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 12.
Secretary of State.
The whole House will agree that we owe our Operation Banner veterans an enormous debt of gratitude. That is why the Government is introducing 6 protections for veterans involved in legal processes relating to their service. We are confident that this will change their experience, ensuring that the process is fair and balanced.
Sarah Pulchin.
Thank you for the answer. Does the Secretary of State agree with the Northern Ireland's Veteran Commissioner that this Troubles Bill treats our brave veterans more harshly than terrorists?
I do not agree with that assessment. I've had many discussions with the Northern Ireland Veterans Commissioner, and I think if one looks at the facts, including the prosecutions that have taken place, there have been prosecutions of paramilitary terrorists than there have been of any soldiers at all. Indeed, one conviction of a soldier for a Troubles-related offence in the last 27.5 years.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, may I extend a warm welcome to the President of the House of Representatives of the Netherlands and his delegation who are with us in the gallery today. Prime Minister's questions, Ruth Cadbury.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by saying I hope all colleagues had a happy Christmas. It probably feels quite a long time ago now, but not for reform, of course, because today is the day that they celebrate Christmas in Russia. Mr. Speaker, on Monday I visited Reading, where I met with people who will benefit from the first freeze in rail fares for 30 years. Mr. Speaker, that's on top of other measures we're taking to tackle the cost of living, £150 off energy bills, more free breakfast clubs and raising the minimum wage. And there's much more to come this year, Mr. Speaker, as we turn the corner. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I stood side by side with our European and American allies and President Zelensky at the Coalition of the Willing meeting in Paris. Mr. Speaker, we made real progress on security guarantees, which are vital for securing a just and lasting peace. Along with President Macron and President Zelensky, we agreed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces in the event of a peace deal. Mr. Speaker, we will set out the details in a statement at the earliest opportunity. I will keep the House updated as the situation develops, and were troops to be deployed under the declaration signed, I would put that matter to the House for a vote. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in the House, I had further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leaseholders in my constituency and across the country are being fleeced by freeholders and managing agents. And they need relief from both, and we need to end the feudal leasehold system. So, could the Prime Minister confirm when the leasehold and common hold reform bill will be coming to Parliament?
Thank you for raising this important issue. We are taking serious action to deliver homes the country needs and provide homeowners with greater rights, powers and protections. We will publish the draft bill as soon as possible, and I'll update the House. More protections, of course, are already coming this year because we passed the Renters' Rights Bill, stronger protection for 9 million renters, abolishing no-fault evictions. That's the change we're delivering. And who voted against it? Tories and Reform.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bernal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, may I welcome the Prime Minister's efforts to advance peace in Ukraine and his joint statement on Greenland. The last few days have seen significant international events: the US operation in Venezuela, threats towards Greenland, and an agreement to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. So it is frankly astonishing that the Prime Minister is not making a full statement to Parliament today. No Prime Minister, Labour or Conservative, has failed to make a statement to the House in person after committing to the deployment of British troops. His comments about making a statement in due course, quite frankly, are not good enough. It shows a fundamental lack of respect for all of us here and the people we represent. Mr. Speaker, the US is Britain's closest military ally. However, we are clear that the sovereignty of Greenland is sacrosanct. So can the Prime Minister tell us what influence is he bringing to bear with the US administration to ensure that is respected?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear about what was agreed yesterday, because military plans were drawn up some months ago, and I've updated the House in relation to that. Yesterday was a political declaration that sits under those military plans. If there were to be deployment, there would have to be a legal instrument. Mr. Speaker, deployment would only be after a ceasefire to support Ukraine's capabilities, to conduct deterrent operations, and to construct and protect military hubs. Mr. Speaker, there will be a statement to the House at the earliest opportunity. There could hardly be an opportunity. They claim they want to know about this, and they're trying to shout me down. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the House, if there were a decision to deploy under the agreement that was signed yesterday, then I would put that matter to this House for a debate beforehand and for a vote on that deployment. That is consistent with recent practice, and I'll adhere to that.
Mr. Speaker, why is today not the earliest opportunity? The truth is, the Prime Minister does not want everybody in this House to be able to ask him questions. So he leaves it just to Prime Minister's questions half an hour on Monday On Monday, at least his foreign secretary stood up for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It was a non-event, but at least she did that. He is scared of us being able to ask him questions. Yes. 6 questions. Yes, he's here.
Please. I've also requested that we do need an early statement. This House should always be informed first. So I don't like the chantering. Let the questions continue.
Well, one of them asked, but he is here. He's got no choice but to be here for Prime Minister's questions. That's why he's here. If he could skip this, we know he would do. But back to the matter at hand, Mr. Speaker. We all agree, all of us here agree, I think most of us here agree, that NATO is the bedrock of our security. The future of Greenland is of fundamental importance to the future of the alliance. And I am sure that the Prime Minister agrees that it is essential for NATO leaders, including and especially the US, to meet. Will the Prime Minister call for an urgent meeting of NATO leaders?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she says she wants to hear about Ukraine. She's got 6 questions. She's not even asking a second question about what we did yesterday. She's got the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, in relation...
Sorry, can I help the Prime Minister? You don't need to worry about the responsibility of the questions of the opposition. That's the
Mr. Speaker, NATO is the single most important and effective military alliance the world has ever seen. In the 18 months we've been in power, I've done everything within my ability to strengthen NATO. We had one of the strongest NATO meetings last year, the summit, where we had more members of NATO and more unity. When I arrived back to the House to make a statement, which of course she asked for, her position was I shouldn't have missed PMQs, I should have empty-chaired the NATO summit. That's how serious she is about NATO, Mr. Speaker.
You didn't answer the question, Mr. Speaker. I asked him if he would call for an urgent meeting of NATO leaders. We can all see that the situation is moving rapidly. I also note that he has still not had a call with President Trump. That is concerning 4 days after the events in Venezuela. But yesterday, he announced that Britain and France had signed, he says, a political agreement to put troops on the ground in the event of a peace deal in Ukraine. So, given the Prime Minister is not making a statement about that deployment of British troops abroad, one of the most serious decisions a government and a parliament can take, irrespective of what he says, can he at least confirm how many troops would be sent to Ukraine and whether they would be in a combat role?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was with NATO allies yesterday, all day, in which we were discussing security in Europe, in particular security guarantees for Ukraine, and we made significant progress. And I'm glad that she has welcomed that. Of course, I will speak to President Trump. I spoke to his senior advisers yesterday. We were with them all day. But, Mr. Speaker, she asked me about the deployment. We released the statement yesterday. It's clear from that, but I will be clear with the House that there would only be deployment after a ceasefire. It would be to support Ukraine's capabilities. It would be to conduct deterrence operations and to construct and protect military hubs. The number will be determined in accordance with our military plans, which we are drawing up and looking to other members to support. So the number I will put before the House before we were to deploy. But I'll do more than that. If we went as far as a legal instrument to deploy, which would be necessary, I would then have a debate in this House so all members could know exactly what we're doing, make their points of view, and then we would have a vote in this House on the issue, which, to my mind, is the proper procedure in a situation such as this.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the Prime Minister either does not have the detail or does not want to give us the detail. Yes. But this is important. He should be calling an urgent meeting of NATO leaders. He should have spoken to President Trump by now. This is important because if any such peace deal is breached, we would be in direct conflict with Russia. If the Prime Minister is committing troops, he must give more detail on how he intends to ensure our armed forces are fully resourced. Before the budget, the Prime Minister said it was his ambition to spend 3% on defence in the next Parliament. That could be as late as 2034. It is time to move from ambition to commitment. We have now had the budget. So can the Prime Minister now tell us, in what year will the UK spend 3% of GDP on defence?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, just on this serious issue she puts to me in relation to security guarantees and the American role and our dialogue with the Americans, I can assure the House I spoke to President Trump twice over the Christmas period in relation to this specific issue, along with members of the E3, along with European allies. That has been a constant course of our discussion. There's no question of acting on this without full discussion with the Americans, and their senior negotiators were there at President Trump's request yesterday and on his instructions, and they were talking to him during the course of yesterday as we negotiated. So to assure the House, because it is a serious position she's putting to me, on the question of security guarantees, there is nothing between the UK and the US, and we've been constantly discussing this over many, many weeks and months. We've made huge progress. I have personally spoken to President Trump about it on 2 occasions since we were last in this House. I do want to reassure her and the House in relation to that really important issue. In relation to defence spend, I'm proud that we're investing to keep our country safe, that we have increased the defence spend. That's provided for in the budget. It's the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War, and that means, Mr. Speaker, better kit, better housing for our forces and better defence as an engine for growth. Mr. Speaker, that does compare to their record. Ben Wallace, who was on the radio this morning, the longest-serving Conservative Defence Secretary, admitted that on their watch the armed services had been, in his words, hollowed out. And our defence...
Mr. Cartledge, you expect a lot. I expect something back, and that's silence. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, they shout shame. I'll pass that on to Ben Wallace. Mr. Speaker, the defence spending that we've put in place is 3 years earlier than the unfunded plan that they left behind at the last election.
Can they not?
Mr. Speaker, I heard what... Oh, wait for it. Yeah. What Ben Wallace said was that spending had fallen under all governments. 3%, the last time, Mr. Speaker, the last time spending was at 3% was under a Conservative government. And yes, while we welcome the increase, something that we supported, can I remind the House that this is a man who sat in the shadow cabinet and tried to make Prime Minister a man who said we shouldn't even be in NATO at all. So I don't need to take any lectures from him. The world is changing. We need to spend more on defence. He did not answer the question about when we would get to 3%, yet he knows up until 2031 how much he's going to be spending on welfare. He doesn't know. That's in the Red Book. The Red Book has no money allocated for defence. We need to move from ambition to commitment. And Mr. Speaker, this is important because this isn't just about money. If the Prime Minister is deploying troops to Ukraine, those troops need to know that we have their backs. Last week, 7 former SAS commanders, 7 former SAS commanders warned that Labour's Northern Ireland Troubles Bill will wreck our special forces. Not me, that's the SAS. In November, 9 retired 4-star generals warned that his bill was a direct threat to national security. And even his own Northern Ireland Veterans Commissioner has said our veterans are being treated worse than terrorists. So, Mr. Speaker, is it not madness to be putting veterans in the dock for serving their country at the same time he is deploying today's soldiers into Ukraine?
Mr. Speaker, that was embarrassing. She said that Ben Wallace was talking about all government. They were in power for 14 years and they hollowed out our armed forces. Copyright Ben Wallace. Secondly, she talks about the shadow cabinet. She has in her shadow cabinet a shadow attorney general who is advising Abramovich at the same time as we are imposing sanctions on Russia and trying to use that money to support Ukraine. How can someone sit in her shadow cabinet advising someone trying to escape sanctions and pretend that their policy is to support us on sanctions? And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to Northern Ireland, they are the party that gave immunity to IRA terrorists, terrorists who killed British soldiers. Their flawed act was struck down by the courts, which left our veterans with no legal protection whatsoever. We're introducing a fair and transparent process with a package of rights and protections for our veterans. And, Mr. Speaker, there is no equivalence between our armed forces who fought bravely in Northern Ireland and terrorist groups. And if the Leader of the Opposition wants to go back, if her position is, to their old flawed legislation and give immunity to the IRA, she should stand up now and say so.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by talking about the Shadow Attorney General. Yes. Yeah. Do they know what the Shadow Attorney General is doing? He is defending veterans pro bono against the actions of this government. Yes. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we will defend those who defended us. But why don't we talk about the actual Attorney General who is sitting in Cabinet, the man who defended Jerry Adams, the man who's trying to bring Shamima Begum back into the country, the man who is helping to surrender the Chagos Islands. I will take our Shadow Attorney General every day of the week against his Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, we protect our veterans. I want the Prime Minister to know we protect our veterans. What he is doing to veterans is disgraceful. But this is serious, Mr. Speaker. I don't want the House to be under any illusions. I do not want the House to be under any illusions. The Prime Minister should know that we will absolutely support any efforts to help bring peace to Ukraine. We will work with him to ensure NATO remains the bedrock of our security. But we cannot write a blank cheque when he is also surrendering the Chagos Islands, surrendering our veterans to lawfare, and surrendering to his backbenchers by prioritising welfare handouts over defence spending, as if the world has not become more dangerous. So, Mr. Speaker, isn't it time the Prime Minister changed course and for once put the British national interest first?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the Shadow Attorney General. Of course I accept that lawyers have to represent all sorts of clients. Of course I accept that privilege. The question is whether the Shadow Attorney General can sit in the Shadow Cabinet when the party opposite says it supports us on sanctions. We want the money from Chelsea Football Club to go to Ukraine. I'm not sure whether that's her position. If it is her position, presumably it's something they discuss in the Shadow Cabinet, advised by a Shadow Attorney General who is representing the very man whose money we want to send to Ukraine. If she can't see the conflict of interest in that, then she shows no judgment and no leadership at all. The same old. It's a new year, but the Leader of the Opposition has got absolutely nothing to offer the country. She is totally irrelevant. Nobody is listening to her. Mr. Speaker, this is the year when on this side we turn a corner. People benefit from the decisions we made, £150 off energy bills, freezing rail fares and lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. We're turning the corner and there's much more to come.
Well, the Prime Minister can keep the good news going because he's rightly made house building and economic growth key priorities for his government. By giving the go-ahead today to the Chesterfield-Staveley regeneration route, he'll help us to deliver 1,500 houses and 5,700 jobs on land that was previously coal mining and brownfield industrial land. It's not just a road, it is a growth project. So will the Prime Minister keep the good news coming and tell us that he'll support the Chesterfield-Staveley regeneration route?
Well, can I thank him for that question? I know that he's working hard on this scheme. As he knows, land investigation works are currently taking place to help establish the final costs. The Road Minister is looking closely at the scheme alongside about 40 others. We will prioritise schemes that deliver faster journeys and unlock new homes and jobs.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I wish you a Happy New Year and everyone in this House? And can I welcome the progress made on security guarantees for Ukraine yesterday? Mr. Speaker, Geoffrey Robertson, KC, is a respected authority on international law. He's also the head of the Prime Minister's barrister chambers. And he couldn't be clearer. President Trump's actions in Venezuela are illegal. He says the United States, and I quote, is in breach of the United Nations Charter and has committed the crime of aggression, which the court at Nuremberg described as a supreme crime. Does the Prime Minister agree with his old mentor, or has he got it wrong?
Well, there's plenty of things that Geoffrey and I have agreed on and disagree with over the years, but let me set out our position. It is our long-standing position that Maduro was not a legitimate president in Venezuela. And so nobody, I think, sheds any tears at his removal. And what we need, what we were saying before the weekend, and we say again, is there needs to be a peaceful transition to democracy in Venezuela. Now, the benchmark of all actions of all countries is, of course, international law, and it is for the US to justify its actions accordingly. My focus is on the defence and security of the United Kingdom, and yesterday we were working with NATO allies, including the US, on security guarantees for Ukraine. And it's only with security guarantees that we'll have a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, which is vitally important for Ukraine, for Europe and for the United Kingdom.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just looks ridiculous when he won't tell the truth that Trump has broken international law. But turning to Donald Trump's next target, the Prime Minister was right to give the Danish Prime Minister his backing over Trump's threats to annex Greenland, and I welcome his joint statement with other European leaders. But does he also agree that if Trump does attack Greenland, it will be the end of NATO? And given that frightening possibility, does he accept that the UK needs to increase defence spending more quickly than currently planned and build new alliances with reliable nations?
Mr. Speaker, let me be. The Greenland issue is obviously very, very important. I thank him for raising it. The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. And yesterday, he will have seen that I put out a statement to that effect, along with fellow allies in Europe. And of course, NATO is hugely important, the single most effective and important military alliance the world has ever known. He keeps encouraging me to sort of tug away at parts of NATO and to choose between Europe and the US. That would be a strategic mistake for our country. And yesterday we were working with our NATO allies, including the US, our NATO ally, on a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. That will not happen without security guarantees from the coalition of the willing, backed by the United States. That's a vitally important issue, and we made progress on that. And there won't be a just and lasting peace in Ukraine without those security guarantees, and not achieving a just and lasting peace in Ukraine is not in our national interest, and that's why I'm applying so much time and energy to seeking to get that outcome.
Prime Minister, even its strongest advocates acknowledge that Northern Ireland is trapped in dysfunction, and not because reform is impossible, but because the DUP and Sinn Féin haven't allowed it. We've become a political Hotel California where the past is always around, but the future never arrives. There's growing public consensus that some of Stormont's procedures simply aren't working, and the SDLP has found slivers of common ground across the political parties too. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that now is the time for a structured conversation which protects power sharing but which addresses the culture of veto and decline, so Stormont might finally take responsibility and start to deliver for the people?
Well, can I thank her for her question? The Belfast Good Friday Agreement is one of the greatest achievements of the last Labour government, and it enshrined Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom and set out, as she well knows, I know, clear principles and processes under that framework. I'm aware of the Assembly and Executive Review Committee inquiry into institutional reform, but I can indicate that we're always happy to discuss any proposals for reform which would lead to a consensus.
Gavin Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, you will be aware of the grave concerns that abound around the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill, particularly amongst veterans and particularly among those who stand up for and speak out for the interests of those who defend our nation. And they have read the 6 protections in the bill and they don't see them as such. They offer no protection, they are procedural, and they apply to terrorists too.
They do.
So will the Prime Minister confirm that what we have heard is true, that the Ministry of Defence and the Northern Ireland Office intend to bring forward government amendments that will specifically and particularly protect veterans, and that they will offer protection?
Well, can I thank him for his question, and I know how deeply he feels about these issues. The bill, as he knows, will put in place new measures designed specifically to protect veterans. These safeguards have been developed with veterans in mind after carefully listening to their concerns. They have no respect at all, have they, for this issue? We've been meeting with veterans' organisations and listening to their views, and when the bill reaches the committee stages, the House will see the result of those considerations, and you'll be pleased to hear that. We're determined to ensure protections are as fair and effective as possible, recognising the role that service personnel played in keeping people across the UK safe during the Troubles, and I thank him for his question.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having met with many independent business owners, they fear the cumulative impact of the rateable value revision and relief reductions. In York, hospitality sees an average business rate rise of 41%, a music venue 44.4%, and many independent shops increases around 27%. It will mean doors closing and trade ceasing. They just can't do it. So could the Prime Minister urgently review the business rate proposals, and will he ensure a minister or official attends my business rate summit at the end of January, as I want to avert a crisis on York's High Street?
Can I thank her for raising that issue? As she knows, during COVID, the rates went down, and that was coming to an end. And that's why we put in place interim relief as we move to the new rates. Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to work with and talk to the sector on that support and what further support and action we can take.
Sir Albee.
Mr. Speaker, the period after Christmas can be a challenging time for many people, and consequently the month of January consistently sees higher rates of suicide than at other times of the year. But suicide is preventable and lives can be saved. Education, raising awareness, targeting vulnerable groups are all effective suicide prevention strategies, and I was pleased to see them in the recent Men's Health Strategy. But I'm calling on the Government to go a step further and to launch a public health campaign to encourage discussions about suicidal thoughts and ideations. So will the Prime Minister agree to continue this conversation with me, and will he state his support for a public health campaign to tackle the worryingly high number of deaths from suicide in this country?
Can I thank her for raising this issue and assure her that we want to work with all colleagues across the House on this crucial issue, and it's in our interest to do so. We did, as she said, launch the first ever men's health strategy, announcing over £3.5 million into supporting suicide prevention support programmes, recruiting over 7,000 mental health workers, including access to talking therapies, rolling out mental health support teams in schools. It is vital that we raise awareness and increase the support available, and I can assure her ministers would be happy to discuss her proposals with her, because I genuinely want to work across the House on this really serious and tragic issue.
Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I was very pleased to hear that the government's latest announcement about the rollout of the chickenpox vaccine. This, of course, is in stark contrast to the vaccine conspiracy theories being peddled by Reform. Does my right honourable friend agree that it is only with a Labour government that healthcare in this country is safe and that Reform must never, ever be in a position to be responsible for the health of this country?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased about the measures we're able to announce this week. Of course, that comes on top of the 5 million extra appointments that we've delivered in the first year of a Labour government, and 300,000 taken off the waiting list, and more to come as we turn the year into 2026. But he's absolutely right. They laugh at the denial of the importance of vaccines. Imagine where this country would be if they ever saw power. And if you want an example, or to be like, look at the local councils where they won power. They're absolutely chaotic, in a mess, and putting taxes up.
Peter Bedford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike many of his parliamentary colleagues, I don't actually think the Prime Minister should resign. But with the start of a new year, it's time to reflect, reset, detox, if you will, on his government's appalling economic policies and tax rises, particularly business rates and the impact it's having on the hospitality sector. Now, will the Prime Minister commit to doing that today?
Mr. Speaker, I'll reflect on the fact that inflation is falling and the Bank of England says that it's going to be down to target. I'll reflect on the fact we've had 6 interest rate cuts in a row. Mortgages, those with mortgages will be hugely effective. I'll reflect on the fact the IMF say we're going to have the second highest growth in 2025, defying the forecast. And I'd remind them that under them we had inflation at 11%, the worst Parliament on living standards on record, and the Leader of the Opposition thinks that Liz Truss was 100% right to crash the economy. They're literally the only people who think that anybody should be listening to them. Nobody is.
John Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Adrian Howe was a successful and dedicated Vodafone store manager of over 20 years. In 2017, he was offered the opportunity to take on a franchise of one of their thriving stores. But then the goalposts changed, and he was then forced to take on a struggling store. And just days before he was due to open that store, Adrian stepped into a lake and didn't ever return home. Adrian's wife and widow, my constituent Tracy, is wondering if the Prime Minister will review franchising legislation to ensure there is a balance of power between companies and their franchisees so that nobody else feels undue pressure when they take on a franchise.
Well, can I thank her, and I speak for the whole House in saying I'm deeply sorry to hear about this tragic case, and all of our thoughts are with the family. Obviously, there's a live legal case I can't comment on, but I can reassure her that we'll look closely at the final outcome of that case. There are strong rules in place, but we will look at the outcome of the case to see whether there's more that can be done.
Alison Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Late last year, the cargo vessel Baltic Clipper lost 16 containers off the beautiful West Sussex coastline. Beaches and seas in my Bognor Regis and Littlehampton constituency have been polluted with toxic debris. The clean-up was initiated and led almost exclusively by resolute local volunteers. So will the Prime Minister join me in paying tribute to all those involved for their extraordinary efforts? And will he, or the relevant minister, meet with me to ensure that the coastline is restored and that local taxpayers will not pick up any costs?
Well, let me join her in paying tribute to the agencies and the local volunteers who supported the clean-up efforts. They're the very best, and I do pay tribute to them and join her in doing that. Liability sits with the polluter, and agencies and her local authority should work with the responsible party to recover the costs. I will make sure that she gets the meeting that she has asked it for with the appropriate minister.
Ian Hamilton.
Mr. Speaker, I recently met with bereaved constituents who lost their babies at Leeds Teaching Hospital's NHS Trust. Now, understandably, their confidence in the system is at an all-time low, and they want answers about the circumstances in which at least 56 babies and 2 mothers have died in recent years. So will the Prime Minister update the House on what steps he is taking to ensure that an inquiry uncovers the factors which led to these deaths, to confirm Donna Ockenden as chair of that inquiry, and to join me in paying tribute to the courageous families campaigning to ensure that nobody has to suffer the same tragedy again?
Well, can I start by saying every mother and baby deserves safe, high-quality, compassionate care. And I want to see the inquiry at Leeds start as soon as possible. We're working with bereaved families to shape our approach and to appoint a chair who they can trust, as he knows. I have a huge amount of respect for Donna Ockenden. She's an outstanding advocate for families. We'll make sure that we select a chair of the highest standard who has the independence and expertise needed to deliver the real change that is needed.
Angus MacDonald.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, according to the Office for National Statistics, 174,000 people under the age of 35 moved abroad in the year ending June 2025. In the Highlands, this problem is especially acute. Demographic statistics show that young people are not staying in the rural communities. Pupil numbers are down by 40 to 50% in the schools over the last 20 years. Rural depopulation and youth emigration are two sides of the same story: lack of opportunity. We have a demographic crisis. What is the Prime Minister doing to ensure the UK offers strong apprenticeship and skills pathways for young people? And does he agree that the SNP's failure in Scotland, diverting away £170 million intended for apprenticeships and skills development, shows exactly what happens when opportunity is not delivered?
Well, can I thank him and tell him, alongside the record settlement that we put in place for the Scottish Government, we're delivering huge investment in apprenticeships and offer a paid placement for every young person, which is vitally important. The SNP, on the other hand, blocked a welding facility in the Clyde because apparently it was related to defence. They don't back Scottish industry, young people or national security. We do.
Babcock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is tackling patient waiting lists through NHS modernisation and reform. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that we need to tackle victim waiting lists by reforming our courts and criminal justice system?
Prime Minister.
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker, and I've been working with victims of violence against women and girls for the best part of 20 years, and I've assured them time and again that if we get the opportunity, we would make the system work better for them. They have to wait far too long for justice, and in many cases they don't see justice at all. I'm absolutely determined that we're going to turn that around.
Final question, Winnie Morton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised not to bulldoze the countryside, but under Labour, green fields in Aldridge Brownhills, Donald Road, Birch Lane and Bosty Lane are now under threat. Will he accept that his housing target can be met without destroying our farmland and our countryside, but by reusing empty homes and brownfield land? Or was this just yet another promise he never meant to keep?
We're not going to plough through farmland. We're going to make sensible proposals to build houses, something they failed to do in 14 long years. So young people now have not got the dream of home ownership because the inheritance we got from them. We're going to turn that around.
Right, that completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front bench change over.